Welcome back. So this is our last video for chapter 1, and really we're just going to do 2 quick problems, making sure we understand how to calculate our labor force statistics, and then how those labor force statistics relate to the graph of our wage setting, price setting model. So let's start here. We'll take an imaginary country, and we're given the following values. So we've got a total population of 50 million. We have a population over 16 of 40 million. So that's what we would call our working age population. We have employed of 25 million, and then our unemployed of 2 million. And we are asked to calculate the following 4 statistics. So first is the labor force, then the labor force participation rate, then the employment to population ratio, and the unemployment rate. So if you want, you can pause the video here and take a stab at calculating those 4 ratios. Otherwise, you can continue on and we will do them together. Okay, so the labor force. The labor force, remember, is just the employed plus the unemployed. So I always think of the labor force as everybody who wants to be working. So either they have a job or they are looking for a job. And so in this case, our employed is 25 million, our unemployed is 2 million, so our labor force is 27 million. Now we're going to need that number in order to calculate the labor force participation rate. That is just the labor force, 27 million, divided by the population over 16, 40 million. And so 27 divided by 40 is 67.5%. Now the danger here is using the 50 million instead of the 40 million, right? Now, remember, the 50 million includes, a whole bunch of kids. And in modern economics, we no longer think those kids should be working, right? They should be in school building up their human capital. So just make sure you use the population over 16. Similarly, for the employment to population ratio, you want to take the employed divided by the population over 16. That can be a little confusing because we say employment to population ratio, but really what we mean is the employment to the working age population ratio. So in this case, it would be employed, that's 25, divided by the population over 16, that's 40. 25 divided by 40 is 62.5%. Now the unemployment rate. Now the unemployment rate is going to be the unemployed divided by the labor force. Now, there's lots of ways you can mix this up, right? You can do the unemployed divided by the employed. You can do the unemployed divided by the population over 16, or the unemployed divided by the total population. You always have to remember to use the labor force, the employed plus the unemployed, in your denominator. So the unemployment rate in this case is the unemployed, 2 million, divided by the labor force, which we calculated earlier, 27 million. 2 divided by 27 is 7.4%. Okay, so you'll have some more practice with the problem set, but you should be comfortable with these, calculating any of these statistics given, certain numbers. All right, now let's think about how those are related to our wage setting and price setting curve. And so here we just have our sort of blank wage setting and price setting model with labels. So the red line is labeled A, the black line is labeled B, the distance between the origin and the point where the purple line and the black line intersect is labeled C, and the distance between the dotted blue line and the intersection is labeled D. And so with these, we can sort of label at least, right? Labor productivity, the real wage, the real profit per worker, and the unemployment rate. We could also do the employment rate, but not the employment to population ratio, because remember, as we'll discuss, this blue line is the labor force. So if you want to go ahead and figure that out, take a couple minutes to do that. You can pause the video here. Otherwise, we can go along and we'll do it together. Okay, so that red line A is labor productivity, right? So that's a very important number, how much stuff workers are actually producing. And that is sort of the maximum wage that they could ever get paid, right? You can't pay workers more than they are producing because you'll go out of business. Then the real wage is B, right? So that's the black line. And the real profit per worker is A minus B, right? So the real wage is measured from the bottom to B, right? That's the real wage. And then the profit is measured from B to A, or A minus B. Now, if we look at the horizontal axis, right, remembering that the blue line, the dotted blue line, is the labor force, we go from 0 here to the labor force over here. Our employed then is C, our unemployed is D. So in order to calculate the unemployment rate, that should be the unemployed divided by the labor force. Well, that's the unemployed, D, that's that distance, divided by the labor force, which is the employed plus the unemployed, or C plus D. So if I gave you a graph with, actual numbers here for A, B, C, and D, you should be able to calculate all of these things, all of these statistics as well. All right, so that is the end of chapter 1. And so this is an important chapter because it builds our model that we're going to come back to again and again. So even if you don't feel like you have, a complete grasp of the wage setting, price setting model yet, we'll come back to it. We'll talk about it. We'll think about how we can use it to understand the macroeconomy. And, especially the labor market, right? So how much unemployment there is, how much employment there is, what the real wage is, and what that equilibrium means, right? That equilibrium means that firms are maximizing profit by choosing their technology, their number of employees, their prices, their output. And so there's no pressure to move from that equilibrium. So in the next unit, we're going to start talking about income inequality. We'll use our wage setting and price setting model to sort of think about income inequality and lots of labor market policies. So what we'll often call institutions, even though it's a little bit different meaning of the word than perhaps in everyday language. But we'll talk about different labor market policies and how we can analyze them in the wage setting and price setting model, and then also looking at data to see when our wage setting and price setting model seems to explain the data, but also times where it doesn't really seem to explain the data. And so we can use that and compare sort of the labor market policies of different countries to sort of understand, why some countries seem to have, higher versus lower unemployment rates or higher versus lower wages. So I'll see you in chapter 2.